never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life.
Rob, I've been wondering, I have a question for you.
Go on. I'm listening.
Yeah. What if AI, what if artificial intelligence was bad?
Oh, interesting. I had never actually considered that because all of the media that I consume and the social media that I'm on, all of the richest and most powerful people in the world think that it's good. Unambiguously so.
Steven Spielberg's AI. That's the only one I've seen that touches on this subject.
All robots are always friendly and kind and helpful.
Bicentennial Man, starring Robin Williams.
That's right.
So instead of something inspired by either of those movies, what are we talking about today?
Oh, we're talking about Gradient Descent, which is a module, not quite a one-shot, but a short, I guess it could be run as a one-shot, probably not, but a short, self-contained adventure for the acclaimed science fiction role-playing game Mothership.
Yeah, and this came out in 2020 and is by Luke Gearing, illustrated by Nick Tofani. And yeah, it is in a zine form, 64 pages, sci-fi megadungeon, small to medium size. It could be run as a one-shot. It could be run as, I feel like you could get maybe like a 4-month campaign out of this. There's a lot of material here. And yeah, AI is the central conceit.
Yeah. So Matt, the question I have for you as we are discussing this is, you're in a desert walking along, and in the sand, suddenly you look down and you see a tortoise. A turtle. Oh, sorry, it's a turtle.
Yeah.
And it's crawling toward you.
Should I flip it over on its back? Is that okay?
You flip the tortoise over on its back. What, Matt, why did you do that? The tortoise lays on its back, Matt. Its belly baking in the hot sun, beating its legs, trying to turn itself over, but it can't, not without your help. But you're not helping. Why is that, Matt?
Why am I not helping? I don't know. I've been staring at this origami paper unicorn in my hand for like 30 minutes now. And I'm getting the feeling, Rob, that there's some spoilers for Mothership ahead. So if you're planning on playing this, tune out now. But if you're not, it also asks you the central question, is AI bad? But what if you were also AI?
Right. So what I'm alluding to is sort of like, we could skip this, but like it is the central conceit of Gradient Descent, which has a lot going on, like a lot. As a science fiction enthusiast, I am going to gush about all of the references and ideas and ties that are in this module, but sort of like a key aspect of it is that there are androids that look like people, and your players might be one. But they don't know.
The Cylons look like us now, Rob.
The Cylons look like us now. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So Gradient Descent, in addition to being a mega dungeon with, a home base and many levels and points of entry and factions and all the things we say that we love about mega dungeons and we love about this module, also adds a little new mechanic and rule that you can, based on my reading and planning for this module, that you can kind of take or leave. There's no reason you have to engage with this. But the new rule is called the bins. Referring to, because people explore this mega dungeon.
The mega dungeon is the deep. And
the mega dungeon is nicknamed the deep, and people who delve there are nicknamed divers, and the disease they get is the bins. And there are many things.
Do you get it? Yeah,
we
it's
all
good,
get
actually.
it.
It's good. I like it.
There's a little, your home base is called the diving bell. It's great. And there's all these encounters and things that will not freak your players out, but definitely freak their characters out and make them ask the question, have I been replaced by a replicant, a skin job? Have I been one all along? Right? Mm-hmm. Is everything fake? And you're given a new stat kind of similar to your panic and your stress that you can, if you choose to, when you run this, let your players' characters become convinced or not convinced that maybe they've been here all along and they're just part of some crazy experiment. Which, as far as horror goes, and remember Mothership is a horror sci-fi game, that's a pretty good conceit for a module.
Yeah. It's horrible. And Matt's right. You don't have to engage with the bends. I would love to. I can't imagine why you wouldn't. I think it adds so much to this module. But even if your players aren't constantly wondering, am I a replicant? Have I been replaced by an infiltrator android? Am I a real boy? All of the people/androids they encounter do think that they are real people. And that, in and of itself is going to provoke some very thorny and complicated questions and also create some horrible, horrible moments.
I think the other big picture thing that we want to talk, or at least I want to talk about here, is that this is just a perfectly crafted mega dungeon in terms of layout and design. Now, we talked about one of our favorite fantasy mega dungeons, Stonehell. We gushed about how in a very small amount of space, the author was able to vividly describe a lot of locations and make them interesting and evocative. And I think Mothership does the exact same thing, right? The design and art is beautiful and the descriptions are short and evocative. It's great.
We talked about this in our review of the main book, but Mothership is a masterwork of writing, design, implementation. It is so easy to read. It is so easy to understand. It is so compelling. This might be the most enjoyable module I have ever read. We read a lot read a lot of these for fun, but I'm putting fun in quotes. This was worth reading. There's just a lot of cool, interesting stuff. I found this very intellectually stimulating, very interesting. It's going to be hard for us to describe exactly all of it without being able to show
just you. Quoting it. Yeah.
Because a lot of this has to do with how it is literally laid out, the icons, the design, the, indentations, the little symbols, of which there are a lot, but they all sort of make sense. It's very, very, very well done. This is a masterpiece, a huge step forward in writing and designing modules.
I was thinking about this, and I don't think it's something we've talked about on this show a lot, but works, and I'm risking getting us way off topic here, Rob. So pull me back if you need to.
Right.
But
that's right.
Works of role playing games exist on several different levels simultaneously. They're manuals for running a board game thing at your table, right? They're manual. They're guides to how you should act when doing that. They're outlines and inspiration for your own imagination and planning. But some of them are also just enjoyable to read as works of fiction. And a lot of role-playing game materials really fail on this. And Gradient Descent was super fun to read as just a work of fiction building a weird world while also still doing the other two or three things really well.
Yeah. And I, off the top of my head, I can name 2 or 3 other works that I would my standards are high for works of fiction, so that doesn't mean anything. But The Dark of Hot Springs Island, I thought had some actually really great writing in it. Mork Borg, I thought, has some really good writing, while still being, like Matt said, an instruction manual, a guide. It's not a criticism if something isn't particularly well written or isn't enjoyable to read, because that's not actually the most important part. It's not even the top 3, but it is a treat when it is well written. I guess.
For listeners who are not familiar, I guess we should explain like what you're getting here. This module's like, I think $20. It gets you a paper copy and the PDF. It's 64 pages long, just like the Mothership rule books. It's in small kind of half-page size zine form, but the art and layout are beautiful. You get a mega dungeon with a villain, many different factions, 5 levels that are all distinct and interconnected, a ton of reasons and carrots for your players to want to go there, a bunch of threats and escalation, a really great way to run said villains' like masterful schemes, plus kind of a home base and a bunch of advice for if you're making this like a part of a larger campaign, what will happen next depending on what the players will do.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on the villain because there's really like we said, there's 2 or 3 like big picture ideas that hold this together. One is the androids, the Bens, the infiltrator androids. One is just the whole concept of the deep, the dungeon, the diving bell, the Bens.
Sorry, I should have said the dungeon is a massive like orbital satellite that is an android production factory run by an AI.
Right. And the third big picture is Monarch, the artificial omniscience. Now,
Ventures, the mighty monarch, dangles you in its of his proboscis. Yeah, sorry. No, it's not that monarch.
Different monarch.
It's a massive intelligence built to run this android production facility.
And I want to pause here for a moment because it relates to a couple things that I wanted to talk about, which is that all of the main ideas here are science fiction mainstays. The androids, the super intelligence, the abandoned space station or spooky space station. Like these are
right.
Not only are they not new ideas, they're almost cliches. But I want to say 2 things about that. One, you could always approach a cliche, a standard with like a fresh perspective, and that's what Gradient Descent does. But, and I think about this because our techno savior, techno Christ, Elon Musk has just announced,
praise be,
announced or shown off his Optimus robots, which we now know literally a day later are not autonomous robots, but are being operated by a human being with like haptic technology from like a few yards away.
Hell yeah.
And what's interesting about this?
I had not heard this. That's very
sorry.
funny. Of course.
So I'm going somewhere with this. Bear with me because this is unfortunately something that I have strong feelings about. This is essentially like a 21st century Mechanical Turk. The Mechanical Turk was this machine that went around in like the 1600s to Europe and played chess, and it was like a robot that played chess.
Yeah.
1700s, sorry. Played chess. And
Ben Franklin played against the Mechanical Turk.
Mechanical Turk. All the European monarchs were dazzled by the Mechanical Turk. Turns out there was a little guy inside the Mechanical Turk. It wasn't a robot that played chess.
Yeah.
It was just a little guy that moved his arms. Anyway.
Right. It was a puppet. It was a complicated,
it was a very
puppet.
sophisticated puppet, which is exactly what the Optimus robot is. And I guess
that's so cool.
Elon Musk is assuming that he will be able to get enough investment to like fund these until they can be autonomous, which is a little bit like how Elizabeth Holmes hoped that she could fake blood testing until like she had spent enough money to actually make the thing that she said it did work. I'm assuming it will end the same way. The point I'm trying to make here, sorry, bear with me, is that even though I find a lot of like science fiction ideas trite or cliche, like I'm very familiar with them, they are new to somebody. They are, and they are always, there's always somebody who is not going to be familiar with these tropes or ideas. And so I think on this podcast, I often say, well, we've seen this before, but like, a lot of people haven't. And I got to sort of like get myself out of that headspace. This may be the first time for a lot of people that they've encountered the idea of a android that looks like a human, like in a meaningful sort of like complicated way. Like, what does that mean? Because they may have not seen Blade Runner. They didn't see Blade Runner when they're 17 and 100 times since,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
Like, so even...
There's a certain type of person where these tropes become such a central part of your, like, creative identity that you forget that for a lot of people, they have never encountered them before, or maybe only encountered them casually and have never gamed or engaged with them at the like role-playing level, and that's still going to be fun. And then I'll also add, a lot of the things in here are tropes. There are some things that are not. Even the things that are tropes are given enough of a distinct twist and context that for me, they are still a delight.
Yeah, that is the key part, is like even the things that seem familiar have been given a serious twist and an innovation, and there's a lot of cool ideas here, which is to circle back around to the Monarch, or not the Monarch, sorry, it is just Monarch. I have to stop calling it the Monarch. I'm going to throw in a bunch of Venture Brothers for this one.
Ready the acid magnet! Bring her in nice and slow, Dr. My Wife. I want to give them plenty of time to panic and soil their pants.
Is Monarch, because I really like how they've done Monarch, because possibly the oldest trope in science fiction is the like super intelligent, malevolent computer, right? This goes back to at least HAL 9000, if not.
We're not opening those pod bay doors.
That's right.
Yeah.
But Monarch is both that and more, and I like how they've described it and how they've told you to run this being. It's not an artificial intelligence; it's an artificial omniscience. And there's
I'm going to say this like a dozen times during this review, but this module is worth it for this alone. It's worth it for this advice on running a super intelligent villain.
Yes, yeah. And it's only a couple paragraphs, but it says a couple things. Monarch is smarter than any of us. For any plan the crew makes, there's an 80% chance Monarch has predicted it and designed a specialized countermeasure. Put traps and enemies right where they're going to be, especially if your party has been brain scanned, which we'll get to in a minute. And I really love this last sentence. Monarch is a sentient storm, not a person to be puzzled out. And I have recently come to feel this strongly about artificial intelligence. I do not think, by the way, that we are close to like a general artificial intelligence, no matter what the weirdos will tell you who are trying to get more funding for their ChatGPT shit. But if it did come to be, I think it would be very difficult for us to understand a artificial intelligence. I do not think it would think or act or behave like us because it has an entirely different fundamental baseline. And I like the way that they have written Monarch because that feels true of it. And that makes it a very, very fun villain in my opinion, and a very challenging one for your crew to deal with.
Right. It doesn't act like a person, and you don't need to think like a person to run it because you're just reacting and then saying that Monarch has already prepared this. And that, if that was it, that would probably be pretty unsatisfying. But the module also gives us a bunch of Monarch like quirks and weaknesses, one of which is, again, Monarch is a storm. It doesn't really care about the players until all of a sudden it does, until they do some specific thing that causes Monarch stress or panic using the terms of the system, and then it starts reacting. 2, Monarch is smarter than anything or anyone, yet it is still not able to overcome like the limitation that it has shareholder value in mind, which one version of it doesn't. And 2, its primary villain is another the primary thing it cares about is another faction on the station, on the deep, on Cloudbank Android production facilities, the Minotaur, which we'll talk about later. But by giving it all of these like weird weaknesses, plus several, not just the Minotaur, several other factions that are working against the Monarch, in addition to many working for it, it makes it super, super interesting from a gameplay perspective.
And if you're wondering, like, well, if it's so smart, how do the players have any chance at all? You're reminded that the Monarch is doing, like, a million very complicated tasks at once and spinning plans, decades or centuries into the future, which if you read sort of like here's what happens if your players succeed or if they fail, you realize that it's got like, plans upon plans upon plans. And it's, the reason why it doesn't just squish your players immediately is because it's busy dealing with a bunch of, equally or close to intelligent threats, and also planning, 100 years down the future for, invading the solar system from a pocket dimension.
Right. Plus, it probably also wants the players to be here, because that might be a useful experiment. And until the players cause problems specifically to the existence of Monarch, it's actually glad they're here, because it's more data, and maybe it's some kind of interaction. Then you can connect this with the idea of the bins. Maybe the players have been replaced, and maybe they've always been here, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So this is the really, this is just sort of the baseline of the module before even getting into the beautiful mega dungeon. Is you've got the bens, you've got Monarch, you've got these androids, you've got brain scans, and then you've got the actual location of the Cloud Bank space station, the Deep.
Which, our conceit here, let's talk about outside the intro and how you can use this. You can use this as a one-shot and have your players wake up from cold storage somewhere and be hey, your troubleshooters, unfroze, something's wrong with the station, go fix it, go get this artifact and return to one of the ships. But outside the station, there's a blockade of troubleshooters, so human mercenaries that work for the various corporate entities that sponsor this station and can't destroy it because the Monarch is too valuable, and the things that it produces or will produce in its calculations are valuable, but we've got to keep it contained. And then next to the station is a small place for players to rest and recuperate, get information from NPCs. Essentially, your sci-fi starting town at the top of the mega dungeon. A little space craft, cleverly made out of an old vectoring thruster called the Diving Bell, where there are some NPCs that will give players leads and information and tell them a little bit about the factions.
Yeah, and I really like the starting suggestions, because you can lean into the bends as much as you like. A lot of really good science fiction movies and books do this. They sort of start the movie or the events sort of haphazardly, and you pop out of a cryogenic whatever or somewhere, and you don't know much about what's going on, which makes you wonder, are you an android? What was your life like before that? Or you can have them come in, with previous connections as troubleshooters or mercenaries or divers of their own. You can do whatever you like. You're given a lot of really good options for how to approach this. There's lots of reasons why both the Blockade and Monarch want a new group of divers to go in. There's a bunch of different competing factions, and everybody thinks that they can use new muscle or, new blood in general to achieve one goal or another. And it's up to your players to sort of navigate that. At one point, this module says you could complete the whole thing without any combat whatsoever. You probably won't, but theoretically...
Right, it makes a joke, just try it.
Yeah.
You probably won't.
You could talk your way through everything.
I will say this is also, so you should read this module because it's fun and enjoyable to read. You should read this module because I think it will be a great horror sci-fi if that's what you want to run. I think it's also a great lesson in a lot of things about design of modules. And one of the best design things, and there's many, is the rumor tables, right? Which are given at the where your little player base is, and they're color coded in a perfect way to show you who the rumor is coming from, and the rumors lead back to other rumors. They're written so evocatively. The authors of Gradient Descent, Luke Gehring, have really taken the Mothership ethos of pack every bit of punch you can into every word. No wasted space, right? In terms of your actual text, right? Whereas so many other role-playing games spend so long explaining things. What if you just wrote it really, really well in a small amount of text? And that's what this module does.
We praise this in Stonehell, and this is I guess this is like an OSR style of writing things, but it's just you're given just enough to spark your imagination and to make clear what's there, but it's not overwritten. In fact, it's mostly underwritten, but it's done in such a way that you know exactly what's happening and you have all the tools that you need. It's just a lot of the details are left for you to fill out. This is a good and a bad example, right? So there's a couple things that I love about the Bell. There's a lot of things I love about the Bell. You meet your friends, mostly
right,
but benevolent divers or allies. Arcady, Noriko, Ghost Eater, who is friendly, and they will provide you with rumors. They can help you if you come back to the Bell. They can give you information. But like Arcady's shuttle is called the Acheron. Acheron is one of the rivers of the dead that you had to cross to get to the Greek underworld. Noriko hangs out in
I believe the Acheron is a French privateer, Yankee built, lean, slick lines, exciting modern
it's also
age we live in.
A great name for a ship, going back centuries. Noriko hangs out in the Garden of Utnapishtim. Utnapishtim is the
from
Sumerian version of Noah, one of the survivor of sort of like a flood, and
the flood, water, the deep,
flood.
the diving bell,
the diving bell. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, small things, but like little bits of flavor and hint that I enjoyed very, very much. This is what I'm talking about when I say I really enjoyed reading this. And yeah, you're given just like a little bit, graffiti here, what the shrines look like, what Ghost Eater's equipment is. And to me, it feels like so much to work with. Like I can immediately build a whole character, a whole location, a whole world, but it's like, we're talking like 2 sentences of text.
Now, if I have one criticism about this first part, and it's a minor one, the design of the Cloudbank Android Productions, aka the space station, is beautiful. And then like you're given a diagram for what it looks like, where the entrances are, and then you're also given a layout of the station that is not only like evocative and cool looking, it's easy to read and understand. It kind of looks like a circuit board or like a diagram of like old like DARPA like internet.
These took me a little bit to get used to, but once I figured out what I was looking at, I've come to really, really like them.
My only critique here is that I wish there were versions of these art and of the diagram of the system without some of the extra labels so I could print them off and give them to players. It's not necessary to do that because I don't know, like I think this is one mega dungeon, like pretty much all mega dungeons, where your players will need to like map their route and create their own mapping themselves.
Yeah.
Right. But, like if you want to run it as a one shot, they might not be into that. So like it would be cool to have a player's version that you can print off and hand to the players in sections, or a picture of the art of the station without like secret stuff labeled. But that's a very minor criticism.
Yeah, I agree. I almost complained about these maps because it took me a minute to sort of like figure them out. But once I did, I really, really liked them. They're abstract in that they're, like Matt said, more like diagrams, and they've got little symbols that indicate, what type of room and what type of connection it is. They don't really give you they're not on a grid, right? This is not like this is a 10 by 10 room. You're just given sort of like a vague idea.
Would not work for the Mothership system. You don't need a gridded room. Yeah.
It just took me, it was a little bit hard for me to wrap my head around, but like once I did, I was like, this is actually great. But be prepared to like spend a little bit of time puzzling through it.
One other big picture thing outside the station that we're presented with first is Ghosts in the Machine, which is, in addition to all the factions and the AI and the corporations and stuff like that, there are literal ghosts, but they're, artificial intelligence subroutines or scans or copies of humans.
The brain cloud bank and got integrated into like the holographic projectors, and now they like float around like ghosts and do horrible ghost things, which is great, which is such like a great like sci-fi concept. I fucking love it.
Yeah. They
have to be appeased by certain actions because you can't like shut them off. You can't, they can help you, but mostly they're going to be fucking freaky.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of tropes, right? Oh, what a sci-fi ghost. It's real Scooby-Doo. It's not a real ghost, actually. It was just a projector doing the thing. But I think it works really well in the context because these can also be great things for learning information and giving information about what's going on here to the players while giving them either a planned or a random scary encounter.
So let's get to the deep where you got the big picture, your players probably, I mean, if nothing else, there's a ton of valuable salvage in the deep. So their motivation could literally be go get some valuable artifacts. But even if
you're given a D100 table of artifacts,
which is I love tables, but this is one of my favorite tables. There's so many cool things on here. We can't go into all of them, but like some of them are like galaxy changing and some of them are just like weird and it's great. So
Holy Book, combination text of all world religions into one coherent narrative, leads to 80% universal conversion rate. Adherents are unknowingly mentally primed for AI domination. Value, 10 million credits.
One of the best. So your players won't need a lot of motivation. They might be told by the head of the blockade. They might be asked by the executive powers that be to go protect their investment, whatever. On their end of the deep, and then there's 6 primary floors of the deep. And the first one is reception. And again, this is a little tropey. I love it. They show up. And there's a bunch of, overturned couches. There's like banners that say 50 billion synthetics made. There's office, chairs, and like it's all abandoned, of course. It's all been like, flipped over by divers or.
This is your
scoured.
Resident Evil tropes. You're in a corporate office of evil. And everyone's dead.
The first part of like BioShock, but this is very like Resident Evil. You're in like a corporate building and everyone's dead. I love this part. I love all the parts, but this is one of my favorite parts. Yeah, you can find a bunch. We've
said it before. We said it in Stonehell. The success of a mega dungeon depends on like its variety. Yeah. And this one does it well. Every floor has its own fun and crazy feel, while all of them being logically connected for being there to each other.
They do something really clever here. Artifacts are very rare and very valuable, and they give 2 or 3 in the first floor, and I think this is so smart. They call this out in like one of the like sub like headers, but like, to get players greedy for more. They will find at least, there's one that's like easy to find. And then there's a couple more that you can find if you're like trying at all. And they're going to be like, hell yeah, look at our artifacts. Let's go. This is smart. A lot of, I would say most mega dungeons don't put anything like super exciting in the first floor for obvious reasons. But like, this is just like such a clever way to get over the like, oh God, this is a horrible, scary space station, and get your players being like, well, let's keep going.
Right. I got a long rifle made of a single piece of metal, beautifully crafted, perfectly accurate. Or, I found a data drive containing 100% accurate predictions of economics, politics, and the movement of seemingly random celestial bodies over the next 1d10 years. There's just so many cool artifacts, and putting them here means that, okay, the players like can have some successes early on, reasons to go lower, and then after this very evocative kind of intro floor, things kick into high gear when the players head to level 2. Sorry, One more thing on floor 1. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I'm going to call out things that delighted me, even though they're not like big. There's a lift. The lift that you take to get to the second floor has a bunch of graffiti in it. I love graffiti. The top level graffiti is "I dreamt I was a butterfly," and you can actually see this on the front page of the module. It's
Yes.
It's underneath the gradient descent text. This is a reference to Zhuangzi's
The Monarch, the mighty Monarch. Sorry, never mind. No,
famous
yeah,
parable
yeah.
of a man who dreamed he was a butterfly, but how do you not know that you are a butterfly dreaming you're a man? Anyway, I like that. I'm delighted. Again, we're talking about consciousness. Like, they want you to think about, like, you know, are you you? Are you somebody else? This is clever stuff. But this is also a very short floor, which is good because the other floors are real big. But yeah, you get a little taste, and then immediately you're in somewhere different. But yeah, Matt's right. It kicks into high gear.
Yeah, floor 2 is Eden, which is like a crazy experiment utopia / dystopia for synthetic android children or adults. You can do it either way, where half of the floor is for the Chosen, Monarch's current favorite androids running through like playtime and experiments, and his discarded children, right? The I believe they're called the Fallen, right? Who live in the sewers and are like would like to overthrow and return to heaven. And you've got these two factions. Neither wants to fight you when you show up. They will if you want to, but there's no reason to fight either of them, though they want to do some crazy things with you. So yeah, it leads to interesting negotiations between these two factions once you put your divers there. And then of course at the end-ish of this level is one of my favorite NPCs I've ever read in any module.
Yeah, and mine too. And the thing about the Chosen, the Fallen that's really fucked up is that this is the Monarch. Monarch keeps this every time the experiment has run its course. It just starts over, and the Chosen might not be the Chosen again. The Fallen might not be the Fallen again, and it just does it again and again and again and again and again. And these androids have been trapped for who knows how long in successive iterations of this insane, Chosen and Fallen experiment. And it's horrible. That's so bad. It's so fucked up.
Yeah, it's really fucked up. Yeah, they have a little like king android among the Chosen that's like the king of the playground. It's terrifying. And then of course there are a room full of pillars of pseudo flesh, and we haven't talked about the body horror. This is
when we get to the body horror. It only gets worse from there. And
what, Rob? You're not. Let me hold on. Sorry, I was just taking a sip of my delicious pseudo milk, which is at least in my mind, reading it is exactly the stuff that comes out of the android bishop in Aliens.
Listen to this. Dozens of 30-meter tall, quivering pillars of pseudo-flesh growing amidst collapsed exhibition booths, stinking of bitter ammonia, studded with tight sphincter openings, bleeding pseudo-milk.
Pseudo-milk.
And every other room is like this. I have never, again, the sparse and efficient descriptions in this module are incredible, because I have never been so fucking grossed out in my entire life, and there's barely anything here. But like from here on out, you're going to encounter pools of milk filled with fleshy eels, androids slithering out of sphincters and, orifices, teeth.
There's a lot
that
of
emerge,
sphincters.
Yeah. Teeth that emerge from walls, tongues that like lick faces into shape. Like it's it's
the
horrible.
tongues licking faces into shape are definitely the worst. And,
really bad.
It logically flows. This is an android production facility. It makes androids that look like little iRobot people, but it also makes androids that look like humans. And where are you going to grow that pseudo flesh? It's got to be the pseudo flesh farms, which is another level entirely, but you get a taste of it here. Yeah. And you also get a pseudo flesh labyrinth. And of course, what can inhabit a labyrinth except for the mighty Minotaur?
The Minotaur, yeah.
Bear me, Theseus, for I am the mighty Minotaur!
the Minotaur is Monarch's perfect creation, pretty much like Monarch, but without the like need to please shareholders. And the twist of the Monarch NPC or the Minotaur NPC is that it's terrifying, but it's probably also kind of good in a fucked up way. It wants to be the savior of humanity. It wants to help people. It wants to destroy Monarch, which might also become your players' goals as they find out more about Monarch and delve deeper into the deep. So it's like a great chance for either a crazy combat or more likely a very weird negotiation for a very friendly but horrifying creature.
Yeah, and the Minotaur is great because, it's a horrible pseudo-flesh monster, but it is utterly peaceful, super intelligent, kind, loves humanity, wants to save them. If it escapes, this is one of the sort of like after effects, it can take a form of like a beautiful creature and becomes like humanity's uber savior. Like it's you want to help this thing, but the monarch wants to kill it, or Monarch wants to
contain it, which is why it's built the labyrinth, right?
But there are lots of creatures that worship the Minotaur and revere it and want to see it free, and it can be a very, very powerful ally if your players don't freak out because it's a horrible flesh monster.
And of course, this is a great chance for like players to make a hard decision, because is it a good thing for a perfect like AI creation to become the savior of humanity? I don't know.
Is that good?
Some of the NPCs think the Minotaur should be destroyed, right? Back at the diving bell, throughout the deep are creatures that think the Minotaur is bad and should be contained or left there. And there are plenty of people who like the Minotaur and would like it to be free. Getting it free would be a difficult task. The players will have to, if not destroy Monarch, in some way confront Monarch.
Yeah. I think the Minotaur is one of my favorite NPCs in any module. It's so cool.
And the great thing here is about like player choice. If like it's no easy thing to kill the Minotaur, but if the players kill the Minotaur, that then kind of sets the course for the rest of the module, in that now they've done something Monarch might have liked, but now a lot of the Monarch's storm, massive intelligence computing, is freed from having to contain Minotaur. So it could be focused on something new and terrifying, or it could be focused on your player characters.
Yeah, and
either are bad.
Either are bad. And the thing is,
but
your
they're
players
both interesting.
Can assist Monarch, and regardless of what their goals are, this is a good way to get deeper into the deep. And
right. Monarch doesn't care if they get some artifacts, if like their whole thing is to get rich, right?
Yeah.
Of course, this could have consequences for the rest of the campaign, right?
Yeah. So this could be beneficial to them. Okay.
All right. So there are like 4 more levels. The next one, which is quite large in that there are many subfloors, level 3, includes the skeleton works, the pseudo-flesh farms, and a huge maintenance zone. What do we want to say about floor 3?
I mean, the factory is like the most...
And brain construction,
the most mega dungeony part of this mega dungeon. There's tons of rooms, tons of connections, tons of horrible things that can happen to your players, tons of interesting stuff to find. I don't think that this is a bad floor or boring, but after the first 2 floors where something sort of like significant or meaningful happens on, every other room, there are going to be a lot of rooms that is just like, well, this one's just full of like spinning metal shards, and that sucks. But like, it's still like this is very like dungeon crawly, and every room is interesting, but a lot of them are just going to be.
This is where your vats of milk and brain assembly pods and licking things and giant warehouses and assembly lines with 100,000 synthetic androids in them are.
Yeah.
And where, this is like, I think if you want to do a campaign out of this. This is where like your players will be, because this is also like the connective tissue between the upper levels and the lower levels. Your players will spend time going to a specific place here or trying to go through these middle levels to get to the lower levels. And for that purpose, I think they're really good. I think Rob is right. Going through every single room in these levels, unlike the first levels, would seem like a slog to me.
There are two really cool, well, at least two really cool NPCs here. There is Silas, who is a minor...
Oh, hello.
Yes, a
hello,
British
Governor.
version of Monarch that runs or controls the the brain scan section, and is interesting. He doesn't explicitly oppose Monarch, but sort of like has his own agenda, which, in case you haven't picked up on, you can use that. Your players, if they're smart, can use that to their advantage. But Silas also wants to use them to accomplish any number of tasks. There are things that they probably need from Silas that they are going to have to negotiate for, that he may not be very happy if they just sort of go and take or find out.
Silas is your like very traditional like sci-fi AI in that like
he's
the
a lot
NPC
more like
is written
Hal.
where it has
This is like Hal, yeah,
right, real set parameters for what it can and cannot do, what it is and is not interested in, and doesn't stray from those as much. But it's really like useful section for the players to inadvertently give more information to Monarch about like what they're doing, and for the players to actually really with straightforwardly figure out what's going on here, a la the brain scans. Have I been replicated? Will I be replicated? What is the Monarch doing? What is Monarch? All that kind of stuff. Because, this module, I think, gives some pretty good advice, which is don't have Monarch, come on the screens every time the players enter a new room and be like, whatever the villain from Portal was called. And
GLaDOS.
Right?
Or like,
GLaDOS.
what's her face
but
from...
Silas
from
is
System
GLaDOS.
Shock, who is always popping up on screens and like talking to you. Right. Silas will do that. Monarch is busy and doesn't care and doesn't think like that. Yeah. Silas is the more classical, I'm going to talk to you AI type of thing. Another one of my very favorite NPCs is in one of the, again, horrifying creature, the Mind Thief. The Mind Thief. And I love so much about this. The Mind Thief.
Oh, look, it's got a little adorable hell box.
That's right. Is a child android who's escaped from hell, which we'll get to in a minute, and has like a little like lament configuration from Hellraiser, like a literal hell box that it wants you to plug in into Monarch's AI core, which will destroy it by unleashing a bunch of like virtually tortured brain scans that have been living in like an infinite number of hells on it, which is horrible and metal and nightmarish. And but it is a way to destroy Monarch if you want to do that.
Right. This is probably the best way to destroy Monarch, which is to take a bunch of essentially sci-fi versions of human souls that have been sent to virtual reality hell for essentially infinite time.
Right. Yes.
That will then fuck up Monarch's programming enough that it will destroy the station.
Yes.
And a lot of NPCs know about the Mind Thief and are trying to point the players to this horrifying ally.
Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, helping the Mind Thief might be good. It is like a horrible creature that has created its own like virtual reality hell and tormented thousands of sci-fi souls, like Matt said. But this is your best chance for destroying Monarch. And yeah, a lot of the rumors or a lot of the NPCs will point you towards this creature, which you have to delve pretty deep to find.
Yeah. So this is one of the things I like about without getting into too many specifics about the specific rooms, about the design of deadliness in this dungeon. If we could pause our tour through the deep here, which is most NPCs that are keyed to locations or general areas are in no way immediately hostile. They might be frightening or weird, but they want to talk and engage with the players. However, many of the like non NPC parts of the locations, like walls that collapse, ghosts that are trapped there, giant knives or pseudo flesh things will absolutely be very deadly for the players. So it's a great juxtaposition. Creatures not deadly, the environment, 0G poisonous areas, very deadly. Plus, if you want NPCs that are deadly, most of your random encounters or like triggered encounters, the corporations have had enough. The players are fucking with something they shouldn't have. They send the SWAT, sci-fi SWAT teams in to kill them, or Monarch sends a bunch of combat androids or spider tanks to kill them. Boom.
Speaking of tropes, one of my favorites is the corporate government kill team that is there to just destroy everything that moves. And if you roll badly on your random encounter table, which will probably happen, you will get troubleshooters, and troubleshooters will come. They are really well armed and really dangerous. You can read the squad layout. They have really good weapons, and they will come and they will kill you. They will kill your divers. They will kill everything in the area, and then fuck off back home. And these are scary. Same with the groups of
not use
security
these
androids
as random encounters, right?
Yeah.
These should be used as things where the players are telegraphed, hey, you're crossing a line here.
Yeah.
You know about this, or a warning klaxon goes off, because and then you can give your players the hard choice. Well, do we want to finally remove this artifact that is going to make us a ton of money? And can we then get out through this terrifying mega dungeon with a kill team on our tails? Let's find out. Let's roll those dice. Or actually, let's not do that.
Your players are almost certainly not going to be able to fight the kill teams. And that means you either need to run, hide, or find a clever way to get them to fight with or be destroyed by the horrible machinery of this place, which is a really fun challenge. But these are extremely dangerous enemies. But this is absolutely designed where if the players are okay, we finally figured out what we need to do. The hitch is that the Monarch will try and stop us. It always knows our plans. It's going to send the kill androids, or the corporations will try and stop us. Even though we did a deal with the actually nice commander of the station back there, her hands are tied. There's a huge cartel of corporations. She doesn't have control of all of them. Maybe she'll do something to aid us. This dungeon is designed to give your players who have maybe a greater knowledge of the environment or an upper hand in dealing with these overwhelming, let's lead them into this place with the no gravity zone, or let's lead them into the place with the synthetic, Android factory, and let's turn those on and hack into some of them so that they can disrupt the kill team and we can escape. It's really meant for the players to, in that classic horror trope, use their environment to overcome a superior foe. Do a cube on them. Speaking, look at all the science fiction references we're going through. All right, after you get through the factory, which will take a long time because it's very large, you get to Hell, the Human Emulation Labs, HEL. And this is as written. Again, remember how Eden was a horrible experiment of, the chosen, the fallen. This is another horrible experiment, except this time it's child androids that are put in a permanent Ender's game where they have to do tasks against each other forever. Yeah. And then they're wiped and it starts over and over again.
They're essentially a bunch of children enslaved to AI Mr. Beast, which is just as terrifying as it sounds.
The really fucked up part is these super intelligent child androids figured out how to retain part of their intelligence through the wipes. So now they remember these infinite torments and they're trying to find out a way to escape, which is cool because you can help them theoretically. But if you do, you'll probably piss off Monarch. There are security androids that will try to stop you, but this is a potential group of allies like the, Ghost,
the Ghost Hunter, the Ghost Eater.
No, not the Ghost Eater. Was it a Mind Thief? Sorry, the Mind Thief.
The Mind Thief.
Like the Mind Thief, they are hyper intelligent and could probably help you, but this is this is a smaller room, a smaller floor compared to the factory, but it is a lot going on here.
Yeah, I misspoke earlier and said that Eden was full of android children. Eden is full of android adults. This one's full of android children. You could absolutely swap these android children for adults if that's like a yellow or a red at your table, according to, you know, what your players want out of their horror. But yeah, it's absolutely perfect. It also, level 5, though I don't think there's a connection from Hell to the AI core, is you're also given the write-up for Monarch's terrifying lair and the couple ways that you can stop Monarch. One part of the Monarch backstory that we didn't get into is that the corporations wired a nuke in the heart of Monarch. But of course, Monarch outsmarted them and removed the nuke.
Off. And
the nuke is sitting elsewhere in the dungeon. And there's a person who has that can help them greatly sitting on top of the nuke, hanging out, going crazy.
There's an android or a ghost sitting on the nuke but
I think it's a human that's been resurrected into an android.
Even better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that the AI core is actually just like one page and there's no map for it. It's just like a gigantic infinite mountain,
0G vacuum room with and of course the Monarch also exists in other pocket dimensions. It's created all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't shoot it or blow it up. It's too big. You could, this is where you would plug in the Hellbox if you had it, or the nuke if you had it. But mostly this is where Monarch will, talk to you, yell at you, terrify you. It's very like cosmic horror robot. And then down beneath all of that is the final level, which is engineering and support, where a lot of the things that you will need to either leave or destroy Monarch or get what you came for are stored.
Right. This is such great design because in engineering and support, there is another way that the players can, in this module, in this adventure, destroy Monarch or otherwise leave. Like they can turn on the deactivated thrusters and, shoot the whole station into a planet or the sun or something like that. I think this is the only spot where there's an actual really hostile, really deadly NPC that will hunt them. The hunter, literally called the Hunter. It's a giant spider robot with steel webs.
It is an android torso that has been melded with a bunch of articulated scything blades for limbs. It is a horrible monstrosity created specifically to give your players nightmares and to kill them. And it has a bunch of steel wires laced throughout this entire level that if they disturb, the Hunter will come after them.
There, again, it's I really, really love, especially between levels 1, 2, 4, and 5, the different, complete shifts in tone that are still feel completely logical between all these things. I also think the players, if they're clever, can actually get in through engineering and support, and especially if they're, let's say, tired of slugging it through the massive factory levels, this is a great place to start. So that's all the levels and all the rooms here. A couple other things I want to say is at the very end of the book is a great random table for what you'll find in any room and the list of artifacts that can be carrots for your players, things to connect the campaign to other stuff. Absolutely read through the entire list of artifacts because some of them are oh, wow, it's an expensive thing. But others are great information fodder for why your players are here or how you actually want to structure, how you might run the dive into this mega dungeon. So absolutely read these tables at the end of the book, probably before you've even read the whole module.
Yeah, these are key. These are critical.
Jettison the lunchroom. Sorry. Okay.
What else do we want to say? We touched on this, but there are several places where Monarch wants to, for lots of reasons, brain scan as many humans as possible because that helps it make more androids, which is one of its primary things that it does. But again, even if you don't want to lean into the bends and suggest that your players are secretly androids or make them think they're secretly androids, what this allows them to do is, be confronted by doppelgangers at every turn, like once they've been brain scanned. Like there's so many great ways to mess with your players, as if this module isn't hard enough. But like that also means you can give them all kinds of cool stuff, because this is really hard and you have tons of tools to make it harder.
There's so much good advice for not just running this module, but like running interesting villains and locations and like corporations and factions generally for like a horror, sci-fi, cyberpunk game. I would say, like, if you're interested in either running, playing in, designing anything cyberpunk, traveler, obviously Mothership, like, you know, read the advice sections at the beginning and end of this book for NPCs, factions, doing dives, all this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we always talk about, you know, our criteria for how good a module is, like, you know, and one of them is like, is there anything you can steal? There is so much that you can steal from this, even not necessarily for a sci-fi game. For any sci-fi game, though, there's so much: tables, ideas, NPCs, items. Like, this is just chock full of good stuff. This
is one of the best adventure modules I've read in just terms of, especially if you're one of those people who are like, I don't run pre-planned modules. I got too many ideas of my own, right? This is a great thing to read, to refine those ideas, get inspiration, remix stuff. It's also just made for stealing. A lot of the subfloors, like other mega dungeons or hex crawls we like, work perfectly with some tweaks pulled out, remixed into your own campaign. You know, villains, creatures, NPCs, artifacts even are all going to go great in other things of this nature.
Yeah.
It's a remixer's dream. Rob.
It is a remixer's dream. And you could borrow, well, no. I do think like the Mega Dungeon Works really doesn't need to be like together. You couldn't pick one floor. Maybe you could. But I think the way that they connect together actually works is really a key part of it. But there are bits and pieces of each floor that could be stolen, easily picked up and dropped elsewhere.
So I have had a positive opinion of every Mothership module I have read so far. However, this one is definitely my favorite. I don't know if it's the best sci-fi mega dungeon of all time. It's certainly the best sci-fi mega dungeon I've read, but of course I haven't read that many sci-fi mega dungeons. So
I haven't read anywhere near as many sci-fi modules as I have any other kind. I guess if you're cutting cyberpunk, then it's a larger number.
That's science fiction.
But still, this is far and away the best I've ever read.
Yeah. It's quality stuff. We like Mothership. It's spooky season. If you want to run something horror, this is why we decided to save this episode for now. Here's your horror suggestion for the month of October. Yes, enjoy your ghosts in the machine and your pseudo-flesh ghoulies, all your favorite horror things.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thanks for listening, and shout out to listener Christian from Atlanta for suggesting this review. If you have other suggestions for topics or content that you want us to talk about, you can always send us an email at dmofnone@gmail.com or hop in our Discord, link in the show notes. And of course, if you want more episodes, head over to patreon.com/dungeonmasternone for our list of bonus episodes, which now top over 36 hours of content, plus a bunch of cool homebrew stuff.
And keep rolling them dice.